Jobs are up. Inflation is down. Our border is secure. Factories are opening at record levels. Investment is booming. Michigan is thriving. America is winning like never before. And again, Iran will never have a nuclear weapon.
It's Balance of Power on Bloomberg TV. I'm Joe Matthew in Washington. President Trump there speaking before a crowd in Michigan. He left the bubble to visit the swing state and touched on everything from Iran to oil prices to, of course, the upcoming midterm elections. That's why he was there, making his way to Michigan as the Senate primary gets set to take place there in just a little over a week. The Senate, meantime, on its final sprint to the August recess with several must-pass bills on its agenda. As one of its key members, Senator Mitch McConnell, of course, remains hospitalized. McConnell's team revealing tonight the senator is not yet medically cleared to return to the Senate following polio complications. For more on this and the affordability arguments leading into this midterm cycle, we turn to Kentucky Democratic Governor Andy Beshear. Governor, it's great to see you. Welcome to Bloomberg TV and radio. It's good to have you.
Thanks for having me on.
You sent a letter to Mitch McConnell and to his office, absolutely, dated July 8th. I have it right here, requesting an update on his health and well-being. As you write, Kentuckians have grown increasingly concerned about the current state of your health and ability to hold office in the United States Senate. His press team today out with the statement that says, I'm still working hard to get back to my full schedule of work, keeping up with the intense physical therapy per my doctor's orders. Unfortunately, that means I won't be able to make it to Fancy Farm, Kentucky this Saturday. Is that good enough?
No, it's not. Mitch McConnell owes the people of Kentucky, who are his boss, who have elected him repeatedly, a lot more transparency than this. All we've gotten are 2 photos and statements that virtually anybody could put out there. I mean, he's had a 17-minute conversation with his protege, Scott Jennings, but he can't call in for 3 minutes to Bloomberg or anywhere else just so we know he still has the capacity. So I sent another letter today demanding that he provide verbal proof that he has the capacity to continue, but I also sent one to John Thune, because as now the majority leader in the Senate, he has a duty too to make sure that all of their members have the capacity and can represent the people of their states. And what I told Leader Thune is there are only 3 ways for a vacancy, to my knowledge, to happen: a resignation, a death, or a vote of expulsion, a vote that there is not capacity from the Senate itself. If Mitch McConnell won't level with the people of Kentucky and the United States, Senator Thune has a duty to do so.
Well, he's missed 38 Senate votes, having been admitted to the hospital on June 14th. Some of them were pretty important votes, Governor, including funding the Pentagon and our government. How many more votes should he be allowed to miss before something is done here?
Well, I think that the Senate needs to take some form of action, and that can be in simply providing the type of evidence that people deserve, that he still has the capacity. You know, if anybody watching this missed 45 days of their job, they would be expected to call their boss, explain why they've been out and what their prognosis is to return, and to do it themselves verbally to that boss. That's all we're asking. The boss here are the people of Kentucky. And I get we're all entitled to some level of privacy of our health. But when you run for office, you give some of that up. That's the deal, and that's what we know going into it.
Well, do I understand it correctly that August 3rd is a key deadline here, that if Mitch McConnell continues in this capacity through the 3rd, then you will not have an opportunity to name a replacement until an actual election is held?
There's an argument out there that that's a date where I could not later call a special election. And for those that are really pushing this...
Will you challenge that?
Well, a lot of those that are pushing this are online and I think are under the impression that a Democrat in Kentucky might be able to win that election. It's been since 1992 that we have had a Democratic senator in Kentucky. You mentioned a lot of missed votes. I want to point out some other missed votes that might not be a bad thing. He hasn't been there to vote on the SAVE Act, which would tear voting rights away. He hasn't been there to vote to support this war in Iran that this president started and shouldn't be continuing. He's not there to vote for a potential replacement of a Supreme Court justice, to continue a court that would tear down the Voting Rights Act. So listen, when you look at some of this, a vacancy, not having Mitch McConnell show up isn't necessarily a bad thing, because he certainly doesn't show up to help the American people.
Wow. Strong words from the governor, and I have to ask you, I think I know the answer, but have you talked to him? When's the last time you got on the phone?
I have not. We have asked this time, if he is not going to respond, for his staff to step up and to be honest and transparent. And Joe, I hope in all this, right, because I don't wish him ill. I've known members of his family. We have always been polite to each other. I hope he can just provide, whether it's video or other proof, and we can move on, and all this speculation can end, and we ultimately know when he'll be back voting in the Senate. But we're all expected to be in a position to do our job, and it's not asking a lot for proof of it.
Well, this is awkward. Have you talked to Elaine Chao before I move on to something else? Has anyone in the family reached out?
I have not.
Okay. You mentioned the war in Iran, which you clearly do not approve of. And now that fighting has resumed, of course, we've got a pause underway right now, but the most recent spat of 13 straight nights of strikes sent oil prices back up and got gas prices back above $4 a gallon nationally. The president is in Michigan today to talk about affordability, Governor. And it's interesting, the Democrats are talking about the very same thing, just like the election a couple of years ago. This is what people will frame their decisions on, based on the messaging coming from both parties. How do you answer the President of the United States when he says affordability is a Democrat hoax?
Yeah. The president is lying, but gas prices don't. And it's not just gas prices. Look at the price of diesel, because that hits my state that much more. All of our farm machinery runs on diesel, and it's up several dollars to where it was just a year or two ago. People ask me how this war...
$5.29 today.
Yeah, people ask me how this war and Donald Trump's leadership is hitting people in Kentucky. Let me give you the example of a soybean farmer. When Donald Trump ended U.S. aid, that was a major source of purchasing for our soybean farmers, because ultimately helping countries not have their people go hungry is a way of spreading soft power and making groups like the United States. Then through the U.S. Department of Education, they cut the farm to cafeteria program, which was simply feeding our kids through our farmers. Then Donald Trump decided he would tariff China, which stopped buying our soybeans. They are the largest purchaser in the world. They went to Argentina and Brazil, and while some of that has come back down, that full purchase will never be there. If that wasn't enough, now the war in Iran has skyrocketed the price of diesel, and people are paying that much more to harvest. And if that wasn't hurtful enough, about a third of the world's fertilizer comes through, you guessed it, the Strait of Hormuz. That is how badly Donald Trump's actions and his alone are hitting just one group of Kentuckians.
Well, look, I'm sure you're building quite a story to tell here in this midterm cycle. And I have a lot of questions for you about that, whether it's the impact of tariffs on farmers or the fact that the president had to come up with billions of dollars to help farmers in what will be this reconciliation 3.0. I'm just curious your thoughts on a couple of other items, though, in this campaign when we consider affordability and the prices that we're all paying here, the impact, Governor, on Kentucky and what it will mean getting on the campaign trail here moving forward. Do you plan to talk more about specifically how this has impacted farmers in your state?
Absolutely. I think affordability it will be the driving issue, though I worry a little bit that just calling it affordability is political sciencing people's real pain.
Yeah.
It's that you can't afford a house right now until you're 40 years old. And how much do you feel raising a family knowing that your parents own that house? It's not being able to take your kids on the same vacation that your parents took you on. It's working hard and playing by the rules, but feeling like you're not getting ahead, and that makes people feel like the system is rigged. It makes them feel like they're a failure. And the moment that people feel like the system is rigged.
Is that why we're seeing Democratic socialists emerge on the campaign trail? And I don't mean to be political sciencing myself, but this has become a big argument too, Governor. Are they part of the recipe for success for Democrats in this midterm, or a distraction?
I don't agree with everything some of those candidates are talking about, but what they are doing is directly talking to people's pain. They are directly talking to the fact that folks are working hard but can't pay for their groceries, are worried about going to the doctor, might not be able to pay their pharmaceuticals. They're scared the next bill for utilities will put them over the edge. People aren't just living paycheck to paycheck. They're living bill to bill. And again, when you starting to believe that the American dream is no longer possible, that it's just a hallucination, then you'll vote for people that you believe can burn down the system, or at least will do something dramatic. I believe that Democrats need to be that party of the American dream, but I want to support candidates that have real solutions that will work, that will deliver in the short term, that will lead to a better United States of America.
All right, Andy Beshear, Governor, who do you hope you run against in 2028?
That's a good way to phrase that question. No one's asked it that way. I haven't made any final decision, and part of it's I'm head of the Democratic Governors Association. I've got a job to do. We're going to elect governors in places that people aren't expecting, but let me say this. The map for 2028 is going to be made not through congressional, but through governor's races in 2026. When Rob Sand flips Iowa, Iowa's in play in 28. When Amy Acton flips Ohio, Ohio's in play in 2028. Katie Hobbs has to win re-election in Arizona because she's running against an election denier, and there wouldn't be full and fair elections if she doesn't win. So I want to make sure I do my job coming up to November, so whoever the Democratic candidate is has a map that we can and will win with.
Very effective answer, Governor. Come back and see us. I'm glad we've started our conversation, and I hope we continue it with you, Governor Andy Beshear. Thank you so much for the time today on Bloomberg.
Thank you.
Coming
I'll
up,
be
we're
back.
going to go to Capitol Hill.